Hello everyone, Chris Peterson here, bringing you another chess commentary analysis of one of my tournament games. This time I'm going to be playing black against Jack Woehr. Now, Jack Woehr is an interesting guy. He's a retired computer scientist who worked in the tech industry during the time where all the major startups were going on. He lectured me one day about how the work I do for the DCC's website is not technically programming. But either way, he has an interesting positional style. He tries to set up dominating positions that lead to a stranglehold. But when things don't quite go his way, he'll go hyper aggressive to try and compensate for the positional disadvantage. Being sharp-minded and a former expert, he is a tough player to defeat. Another interesting thing about him is that he ran as a libertarian candidate for the Colorado Congress. I'm not 100% sure what he was running for. During the most recent election, he was running for that position. He didn't win, but I kind of have respect for anyone who goes out there and tries to make the world a better place, whether it's politically or however. So, with that, let's go ahead and jump into the game. So c4, e5, knight c3, knight c6. So my typical strategy against the English is to completely ignore my queen side and go for an attack on the king side. Now, I had shown my system to my friend Robert, and he played it against Jack once, but he totally butchered the system that I was trying to show him. But I decided to give his plan, which was just like a hack job of what I was doing. Yeah, I just wanted to give it a try and see how it would go. So g3, f5, bishop g2, knight f6, e3, bishop c5. Now, typically against this setup from white, I would have my bishop on e7. So this bishop would be on e7, rather than where it is now, and my knight would still be on b8. So that means that the standard queenside play from white is somewhat nullified. With my current setup, however, it will be losing a tempo pretty quickly to advancing pawns. So normally I would play moves like, d6, bishop e7, castles kingside, and then queen e8, and then out to h4, and try to play for f4 and break it up quickly. But this is a totally different setup. So knight g to e2, d6, a3, and now a5. And this kind of protects my tempo investment. I do not want to invest 2 or 3 tempos when the pawns come to b4, b5. So with a5 in, it prevents b4, which saves my bishop and my knight from being harassed, basically. It also gains a little space on the queen side, but I'm more focused on the king side at the moment. d3, castles, and bishop d7. So my usual plan is to go queen e8 to h5, and then break with f4. And this idea is far too slow now, so I opt to complete my development instead with bishop d7. So now Jack plays bishop d2. Now king h8 is somewhat of a waiting move. I don't necessarily want to play for the queen e8 to h5 plan right now, but I do want to see what he's planning on doing with his queen side. Now, obviously I have an inkling that he's trying to get in b4 at some point, but now it would just lose a pawn, and it needs some preparation. So yeah. So Jack played rook b1. Now I think b4 still not quite a threat, but maybe knight a4 and then b4. No, can't do that. It's still a ways off. So I like the setup that Robert was doing because it kind of hampers the natural queenside play of the English. I dislike it in that it's a little bit slower and not as aggressive as the way that I usually play. So after rook b1, I decided somewhat brazenly to abandon the queen side altogether and play for an attack. So I played g5, and I find that I tend to make rash decisions um, especially when my development is really far along. This doesn't mean I play poorly in the middle game necessarily. It just means that I like to spice the game up. So g5 is definitely a mistake, I would say, but it is confusing for most players to look at. And the break f4 looks really scary, and the defensive f4 move. What does it do that? The defensive f4 move looks really scary. Um, Let me try that again. So the break on f4 that I'm planning on playing looks really scary, and if white tries to play f4 first, then it heavily weakens that a7 g8 diagonal, this diagonal right here. So um, so he doesn't necessarily want to play f4 himself right away. So knight d5 I think is the proper response. As usual with dealing with a flank attack, it's nice to strike into the center. Other options might be to try to play d4, and after bishop b6, queen c2 perhaps, f4, e takes f4, e takes f4. And although this position is, probably technically equal, black is feeling a little overstretched on the king side and fairly naked in the center. So it could be a fairly difficult game for black to play. So after knight d5, I played knight takes d5, c takes d5, and now knight e7. Jack continued with the normal English plan of b4. And now a takes b4, a takes b4, bishop b6. And I have to say, looking at this position from black's perspective, if we just flip it over a little bit, it feels kind of awkward. The queen side is totally blown open, the king side is totally pushed really far in advance. But at the same time, white has double pawns in the center, which kind of locks out any play on that long h1 a8 diagonal. And black has some menacing breaks coming in with f4. So, I mean, the computer says it's equal here, and I would probably agree for what my analysis is worth. So Jack tried to play b4, b5. It's not necessarily the best move, but I can understand why he played it. It restricts my queen side a little bit, so I can't play c6 to try to break it up. Not that I was planning on doing that. It also gives his dark square bishop a place to go, and perhaps it could find a home on on the b4 square. Not sure exactly what it would be doing there, but perhaps. So now I played queen e8, and so this kind of exploits a little bit of the downside of that b5 move. Is there's not any good ways to defend that the b5 pawn. Right now it's only got the one defender, the rook, and the only way to defend it now that I've kind of built up this little battery is to play queen to b3, which isn't necessarily what Jack wants to do. And the best moves in chess positions are the ones that do multiple things, and queen e8 only does two things in this position, but it attacks the b5 pawn, and it's redirecting the queen to a stronger square, intending queen g6 if he defends that pawn. So I mean, Jack has a little bit of a dilemma. He wants to defend that pawn, but he doesn't want to relegate or delegate two major pieces to defending a lowly b pawn. So perhaps knight c3, but then breaks like f4 or queen g6 f4, and it starts to look a little hairy for white. So let's look at the game. So he played king h1, And I thought for sure he would guard the pawn and allow me to continue the attack, so I thought for sure he would play either knight f4 or queen b3. But sometimes it's a shock, so I played bishop takes b5, and I couldn't tell during the game that if this was a sacrifice or a blunder on Jack's part. I took the pawn without much hesitation, but I started regretting the decision once his bishop started to get active. So he played bishop c3, and now I played knight g6, queen d2, and now g4. Now I was trying to blunt the pressure on e5. If you see, the e5 pawn is totally pinned to my king right now, and he was kind of threatening to play f4, which would pressure e5 a lot, and I would basically struggling for ways to defend that e5 pawn. And in fact, he does play f4 right away. So a simpler answer would have been to just move my king off this diagonal with a move like king g8. And now I don't have to worry about any pressure on e5, because if he plays f4, I can just capture, and just defend the e file rather than this long diagonal. So now, so he plays f4. So after I played g4, he plays f4, and now I just took en passant because I wanted to limit the amount of pressure that was being applied to e5. So I need to get rid of that f4 pawn. Bishop takes f3, and now just a simple retreating move, bishop d7. Objectively, maybe king g8 is better, but bishop d7 seems fairly good to me because it allows my queen to move freely. See, the queen was tied down to the defense of the bishop due to the white rook. So by moving the bishop back, it kind of secures my pieces a little bit and allows my queen to move freely. So now, so the downside to moving the bishop back right away is that Jack has this nice knight f4 move, which is nice because it's kind of bringing the knight to a good square. Maybe it could hop into h5 and really start to exploit my dark squares. So I played king g8, so I finally decided to get out of the way after several moves of torturing myself with analyzing variations and whatnot. So after knight h5, I played queen to e7, d4, and now queen g5. And maybe better was just to play e4 right away, or maybe not. It just says to play rook a6, which is interesting. No, okay. So, but I kind of like queen g5 because it puts pressure on that e3 pawn, and it also puts a question to this knight right here, on this knight on h5. If I can chase that light squared bishop away, capture it or whatever, do a desperado on it, then I could potentially win material. So queen g5 is a very active move. Yeah. So, and I think I'm not threatening to win anything right now, but potentially this e3 pawn or the e4 pawn, d4 pawn, could become a major liability for white. So Jack played rook b2. So I played rook b4, which apparently is not a very good move at all. I should play bishop to e8. Okay, so bishop e8 would pressure this knight kind of indirectly, so then maybe I can have discoveries with my knight somehow, maybe knight back pressuring d5. I'm not entirely sure what the plan is behind that. Yeah, that looks like a fairly good move. Also rook a3, putting pressure on the knight, or on the bishop on c3 would be fairly good. But I played rook a4, just kind of pressuring this d4 pawn. I now have one to 3 things attacking it, as well as a pseudo pin happening via this h6c1 diagonal. So the pressure is mounting pretty heavily on this d4 pawn. So Jack played bishop d1, putting the question to this rook. So I just played rook a3, hitting the bishop. Not really doing anything substantial, but feels kind of nice to hit that bishop. And now Jack played a move that surprised me. He played rook takes b6, and this move just completely demolishes my entire queen side. And my shattered pawns will be easy targets for the powerful dark squared bishop, and also the queen. However, I don't think it was necessarily worth the exchange. So cb6, queen b2, kind of hitting the rook and the pawn. So just rook a6 here, defending the b6 pawn. Another option is bishop to a4. And now if he plays queen takes a3, bishop takes d1, and now this knight on h5 is suddenly without defense. So rook d1, queen h5, rook f1 preventing the check, and now queen e2. And now black is infiltrated, he's up material, and, well, is he up material? Let's see, 4 pawns, 5 pawns, 4 pawns, 6 pawns. Yeah, so he's up a pawn, but it's kind of like a pretty cruddy b pawn. So this sequence of moves were to give me back the initiative, solve most of my problems, and if I could just get a handle on this d6 pawn here, then I'll be fairly well off, I would say. But instead I played just a simple bishop a rook a6, kind of holding on to what I have already. So now d takes e5, d takes e5, bishop takes e5, and now queen takes e3. And now it's kind of an interesting situation where both of our kings are kind of exposed. There's a lot of tactical shots kind of flying around the position, and yeah, I mean it's difficult for both of us to play, and we're both getting fairly low on time, I believe, at this time as well. And it's fairly rare for me to get in time trouble in slow games, and I play pretty methodically but still quickly. At this point in the game, though, I have less than 3 minutes already, and the rest of the game at this point is just a reconstruction of what happened, because I couldn't keep score any longer. So here, the best move for Jack is to play bishop f4, and that's a difficult move to play for I mean, one, because it kind of puts your bishop in a square where it can be captured, but the main point is that there's this issue of checkmate happening on g7, so I can't capture on f4 right away. So I'd have to defend first with queen e4 check, and then maybe rook f7 or something along those lines. So just as an example, we'll say bishop f4, queen e4 check, bishop f3, queen to e7. Now d6, putting the question to that bishop, to the queen. Queen to f7, and now bishop a6, h6 maybe. And now kind of like a rook a2 is kind of a nice move to regain some of the initiative. But the tactics are getting way out of control for a time scramble. So I'm below 3 minutes, and Jack still has about 15 minutes. Yeah, so Jack's doing fairly well in this position. So after queen e3, instead he played bishop d6, which has a similar idea in that it attacks the rook and threatens mate. But now the rook, it kind of drives the rook to the square that it needs to be to defend, which is f7. So now knight f6 check, and I don't really have any choice. I have to give up the rook. So rook takes f6. It's worth relieving some of the tension around my king, but now, but at the same time, I have to give back material. But my knight is now free to defend the dark squares from his excellent g6 post as well. So as you can see, my knight is defending this f8 square, which is really important, and perhaps later the h8 square will be important if Jack builds up a battery on the h8 a1 diagonal. So queen takes f6. Now rook a2. Queen to d8 check. And now just simply bishop e8, kind of blocking that attack. Queen f6. Now I blundered here because I'm in fairly strong time pressure. I played queen e4 check thinking that I gained an extra tempo because he'll have to block with the bishop, and then I go queen c2, and it gets really difficult for him to hold the position. But I missed a simple defense that kind of made it so much easier for him. So instead of queen e4 check, I should have just played queen d2, and this is now pretty difficult for white to defend. So after queen e6 check, bishop f7, queen e2, bishop takes d5 check, king g1, queen d4 check, and as you can see, white's going to have to give up his queen at least. So for example, rook f2, and rook takes queen, and it's pretty much all over for white. But instead I got ahead of myself and played queen e4 check. And I tried to finesse the position that didn't need it. I don't remember what I was thinking exactly. I think I thought he had to block with the bishop, and then queen c2, and now it's almost impossible for him to defend this the second rank. But there's a nice computer defense here. So I played queen c2. I don't think queen c2 deserves a question mark. Let's remove that. I think queen e4 check deserves a question mark. Let's go with that. So bishop f3, queen c2, and now there's a really cool defensive move that white could play. It's g4. So the key defensive idea that I missed when I was trying to be all finesse-like, by bringing his bishop to f3, he's now guarding g2, and now that the g3 pawn is out of the way, the dark square bishop is defending the two mate squares. So that makes it very difficult for black to continue the attack. White's bishops are so powerful. This position might be drawish, but with only a little bit of time, there's no way I can play perfectly enough to defend against these two bishops that are just going to crush me. So instead of g4, Jack played queen e6 check, which is just a blunder, because after bishop f7, it's impossible. He can't defend the mate now and save his queen. So he played rook f2, queen takes f2, now queen c8 check, king g7, queen c3 check, king h6, queen c1 check, queen d2. Of course, just simply rook d2 first is just much better, because now he's got no checks. He has to give up his queen for the rook. Well, yeah, he can't even play. If he tries queen here, then simply queen takes, rook check is going to be a mate. So he has to take. So rook d2 would have been simpler, much simpler, but I only have 11 seconds, so you can understand. At least be a little kind to me for not seeing that. Queen d2, queen takes d2, rook takes d2, h4, and here it's just kind of a matter of cleaning up, I guess. And now I only have like 7 seconds or something at this point, but there's also a 5-second delay, so my b pawn's just gonna queen, and I can checkmate pretty quickly with just a queen and a rook. So that was that game. It was really interesting tactically, kind of later on. It was really interesting positionally in that middle game where I was playing g5 and trying to break open the king side, and meanwhile Jack was doing the crazy sacrifices on the queen side. So I think all in all, this is a fairly intense game. We both used up pretty much all of our time. Fairly even struggle. So great game from Jack. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys next time.